This is Bill's Campday Recap. I'm Thad Brown along with Caleb Carr, Rachel Liebert. We got a full house here on a Tuesday. It was open practice morning in Orchard Park. The stadium kind of filled. A lot of people there for a Tuesday morning extravaganza. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the turf wars, getting the grass to do what the Bills wanted to do, plus lots of thoughts from what happened at practice today. One that was without many of the starting wideouts, but still had a number of players who stood out for sure. Let's start with the injury update today. There's actually stuff to get to. First of all, we'll show you the field. There it is, everybody. Practice in the stadium. Now, Keon Coleman did not practice today. He was in a boot. No update from Joe Brady on any of this stuff. He has been very reticent to provide injury updates. Today was no different. On the bright side, Cole Bishop and Max Hairston were back at practice for the first time in a week for Bishop, a couple for Hairston. Khalil Shakir and Oliver did not practice. We were not told they were veteran rest days, but they looked, both of them, like they were vet rest days. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Connor McGovern on the field, but did not practice today. That is the majority of the top injury stuff, or the main points, at least for sure. Now, the number one story from today was about Turfgate. We're not really calling it that. I just wanted to say that now because there's so many gates and there's so many things with the stadium going on. People are getting nervous about it. It's going to be fine, everybody. The stadium's cool. But the grass so far through two events has gotten pretty torn up. There have been divots. There have been players and coaches who are trying to replace grass. So today, one of the big topics was to ask the Bills players what they thought of the playing surface that they have played on the first two games. And while guys were open to admitting there were issues, they're pretty optimistic things are going to get fixed.
That's above my pay grade, but, whatever you heard is accurate.
They had, a bunch of divots in there. You had to, stomp on it. And that was interesting. I never saw that before. I was like, maybe it's just new field or something. I don't know.
I think that we can make some improvements. The grass is definitely soft. It's plush. It feels great to break on. It just breaks up a little bit. So I think once we get that dialed in, it'll be money.
Yeah, they got a little bit of tugs, a little bit of ditches and stuff like that in there, but that's because we digging them up, not because they was already there. Our staff do a good job of cleaning this before we even put foot on it. So, I can't complain about it.
Just soft. It's super soft. It hasn't been worn up, torn out, things of that nature. Turf and grass is so different. You really got to get your footing in grass, and if it's too soft, you're not going to be able to make the right cuts. But once it kind of hardens and gets played on a little bit, it becomes better.
So to revisit what we talked about last week with Khalil Shakir, the idea that the grass right now is soft and when the roots grow in, it'll get firmer. Ray Davis, who admitted that he majored in communications and not agriculture in college, thought that it would be better within a couple weeks. I think that might be optimistic, but to be fair, I don't have an agriculture major either. Rachel, you talked to some of the players today as well about the grass issues. Give me your take on the situation and what we heard from the guys today.
Yeah, the first thing is it's kind of funny. You can tell who's been on this team longer than a year or two by the honesty that they give based on the
Bradley Chubb was pretty honest.
He's been
in the league a long time.
But overall it was just a lot of, you could kind of tell the guys were unhappy even if they didn't say that. I think it was the look on their face off the initial question was kind of a little bit it's not the greatest, but like you said, I think this is over time it's going to be fixed and they're going to get more used to it. But yeah, nothing crazy concern, like you said, but it does seem like they're not super happy with the state of it right now.
The joke in the media room afterward was the number of guys who, when you asked them, what do you think of the grass, responded with a immediate long pause or a,
they were thinking the PR wheels were turning in their brain. Yeah.
It's definitely going to get better. This is the third time that the third event that they've actually had on the grass. I agree with Khalil Shakir from last week. I agree with Ray Davis, even though he doesn't have a major in agriculture. I still trust him. It's going to get better as you play on it more. Will it be better by week 2? Probably not. Hopefully it's better. It won't be where they want it to be. It won't be to the level that the practice field is. Khalil Shakir saying last week that the practice field is perfect. So it won't get to that for a while. But it's either you got to kind of lean into the grass and you have to adjust to the grass and let the grass get to where it needs to get, or you play on turf. And it feels like a lot of these guys would rather play on the grass. So I think all in all, although it's not great where it's at right now, I think 100 times out of 100, every one of these guys is still picking the grass.
And it's funny you bring up the guys wanting to play on the grass because that was a consistent part of the refrain. And to Rachel's point about the PR wheels, the immediate reaction might be PR in favor of the team. But to be honest, I think players were more having the PR wheels turn in favor of the NFL Players Association because you can see the guys thinking about how players have complained about we have to have grass. There must be grass, except this grass is no good. They're not going to go that way. You know, they need to continue to say that we like grass, even if the grass isn't great. Now, to your point, Caleb, about this is going to get better. As we were talking, it occurred to me that we talked on Saturday, you and I, a lot about how there's obstructed seats and the issues with the sight lines. Those things are not going away. That's just how the stadium is built. The grass issue, you would think, is almost certainly going to get better.
Oh, yeah. As they continue to seed it and they continue to play on it, especially once we get to like a couple games on it, like full actual warm up and games, I think it's going to be fine come midseason. And
even if it's not midseason or week 8 or whatever, you can improve this. You know, the stadium is what it is, but the field at least can get better. And Kanai Walker made a joke later on too, that there are some guys who don't really care. He's like, look, as long as my key card still works, I'll play on concrete. So it's not an issue for everyone, but I do think that this one is one that will improve as we talked about over the next few weeks. Now, today was an opportunity for fans who don't have season tickets, who did not get a chance to go to the practice or the preseason game to see the stadium for the first time for many of them, and maybe for some of them, the only time. And Rachel, you spent some time in the concourses talking to them.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, this was a free practice, so fans, I would probably say the majority of the people in the building today are not going to be able to go to probably a game during the regular season because we know the ticket prices have kind of been a point of contention. But when I asked them, what brought you out and what, is it that makes this event special, they all said, the fact that we can come here and it's something that we're not going to be able to do come the regular season.
Tickets are pretty high priced. I figured I got online. My number came up like 2 minutes after 10 the day they had the tickets. I figured, come on, guys, let's go. At least we'll see the stadium this season because we're probably priced out this year.
I wanted to see the new stadium. Don't know if I'm going to have a chance to come to a game, so I wanted to check it out.
My daughter won tickets, so we were able to get out here. Otherwise, I don't think we would have had a chance to see the stadium. For people that really can't afford it, at least they get to come in and see it at least once.
I know I wouldn't be able to come here during the regular season, so it's nice to be able to come out and see it.
We were just saying we hope they do this every year because it's a really cool chance.
Gives people the opportunity to see what all the hype is around here without paying top dollar to get a ticket to come in the regular season. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, the general feedback was pretty positive. Like a few of those fans said, they hope this is kind of an everyday or an every year thing because, like I said, it's the ticket prices are something that a lot of people won't be able to shell out the money for, and these families are able to do. So it was cool. It seemed like everybody was pretty happy, and then with the stadium too, everybody was pretty ecstatic to be in there too.
I thought it was a fun vibe. It felt like Fisher on steroids, because it was loose, it was practice, but there were a lot more people in there. Kids were in the front row, excited to be there. 41,000, pretty solid number for a Tuesday morning for sure. So I think the Bills were probably happy about it, and it was nice to give more people an opportunity to see this building that so many people have waited and anticipated years to see it on their own.
Yeah, you posted something on social media.
Unspectacular, yeah.
Unspectacular is what you called it.
Well, here's the thing about that, and to fully explain that, not that people really care that much, but I'm looking at the fans who are sitting in the bowl, and has been related to me later on, a lot of that 41,000 were walking around the building checking it out, which is frankly what I would have done, because how much of a practice do you really need to watch when you have this brand spanking new facility? So when I'm sitting there looking at the bowl, I'm seeing probably less than half full and thinking, 25,000, not bad, solid, but not spectacular. 41,000 is a better number for sure. But I also really kind of, as I told you guys before, I thought this was going to be crazy packed. I really thought free, super weather, stadium that's wildly anticipated. I thought everybody who had a chance to go was going to go, and didn't necessarily work out that way.
I don't know how many tickets they quote unquote sold because they were free,
right?
But there was a limited number of
they
tickets
did say they sold
out
out,
there.
I think.
So I don't know how many tickets they put out there for people to get.
Then maybe that was the most they could have had.
Yeah, that might have been there might have been everyone there that could be there. But I also think not that the vibes weren't high for the practice and the preseason game, but we went up into the stands and we talked to some people, and there were some people that weren't happy about certain things. I think that everybody that was there today was really, really excited to be there. And I think that maybe made up for the fact that it was only 41 instead of 50.
Well, I'm sure those people who were there today felt like they got their money's worth, as opposed to the people who've paid hundreds of dollars for seats that they're wondering
getting
about
your
right
money's
now.
worth is just walking into the building.
Exactly.
It was a free ticket.
Right. But it was a good event, and I think the idea of doing it every year makes some sense to me, especially because just because 41,000 went today doesn't mean you've now covered everybody in Western New York. There are still going to be thousands of people who want to get into the building who probably will not be able to make that event worthwhile. I will say selfishly, for those of us who had to drive there from Rochester today for an 8:30 practice, not ideal, but I do understand, and once a year, I think it would absolutely be worthwhile for the team. Let's talk about the practice itself too, what went on the field. And I think the number one thing that stood out to all of us is what the offense looked like with the wide receiver core that had to play today. Khalil Shakir, as we talked about, did not practice. It seemed like a veteran rest day. Keon Coleman was hurt. DJ Moore was out there and practicing in full. There was some concern about the ankle injury from the preseason game on Saturday. Zero issue. He sprinted down to the field. He's fine. But he didn't participate, it seemed, fully in every drill. Not from an injury reason. It just seemed like he wasn't out there. So you were left with Stephen Gosnell and Dante Pettis and some of the more reserve guys playing receiver. And Caleb, we all talked about the fact that it did stand out as a noticeable lesser group.
Yeah, you had Joshua Palmer out there a lot too, and he looked
who was fine.
Yeah, he looked okay, but yeah, you could definitely tell that Josh Allen didn't have his main weapons. For one, I thought he went to the tight ends quite a bit, and maybe that was just kind of like safety valve or whatever. But yeah, the receivers that were out there were getting shut down, and it makes sense because the secondary still had a lot of their guys. I mean, we talked about how Maxwell Harrison and Cole Bishop were back out there. Christian Benford was still out there. So they still had a lot of their main guys. So it made sense that it was difficult for Allen to find open guys today.
Yeah, it felt kind of like reminiscent of practices last year because there really weren't a lot of wide receiver weapons, to be honest with you. I think DJ Moore, his presence was less felt today. I think it just highlights how much we have felt his presence the last few weeks throughout camp, which I think obviously today wasn't really a positive for him, but there was the injury factor too that we talked about. But I think it just highlights the fact that he has been the presence, and I think that's a good thing. But definitely, like you said, Caleb, it was a lot of tight end action today and just not a lot of flashy plays.
We talked about it last week too, when DJ Moore had one practice where he didn't do anything. That was notable, not the practice where he does something, because that seems to happen all the time. To be fair, Dante Pettis had a nice long touchdown catch today, and Stephen Gosnell also had a good one down the sideline. So there is some encouragement, I think, for two guys who are probably battling to be on the practice squad, that they did make some plays today. And again, the Bills did have Cole Bishop and Max Hairston back, so more of the starting secondary they did go against. But it was different today. It was a lesser offense than what we saw or what we have seen the first few weeks with this team so far. As for the tight ends, not a great moment, at least for Dalton Kincaid, who had a touchdown catch near the goal line that Dorian Williams got a little bit of a piece of, but the kind of play where I would like to see the elite tight end make a catch. And with Kincaid, he's got very good hands. If it's not contested, he's got to reach behind him or go to the ground. He's going to make those catches. The contested one, though, he doesn't win near enough for a guy that the Bills and I think many of their fans want to consider as elite. And it's been consistent through this camp, too. He doesn't make that catch a lot, did not make it today. A guy who did make a touchdown catch, Kaleki Latu, who is the tight end who probably won't even make this team. And every time I see him play, I think to myself, this is a guy that should have a job in the NFL. He's not better than the three guys the Bills have, but he's good enough to play in this league.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that just like shows up out of nowhere. It's just like a random, like, oh, shoot, that was like really good grab. And I think it's also probably because, like you said, there's three guys ahead of him that are getting a lot of love. So it might be tough. So. Yes, deservedly so. I mean, they're going to be on the team. They all play significant snaps for this team. So it makes sense. But yeah, he's definitely taken the opportunities, although they've been few. He's taken them and ran with them.
I would say he's been pretty consistent too throughout camp. I mean, he's had a few flashier plays that were like you said, oh, there's Ladu. I mean, he did this, I think, last year too, just being a pretty consistent guy. He's not going to get that opportunity, unfortunately, because of the other talent. I mean, fortunately for the Bills, but he's definitely been a pretty consistent guy. He's been fun to watch. I feel like every once in a while he kind of pops up and you're like, oh, that was a pretty nice grab.
I have not seen him block a lot. I do believe the book on him is that he's a well below average blocker, which I'm sure hurts. But again, I think he's a guy that certainly can play in this league. Speaking of blocking, I got to watch O-line, D-line one-on-ones, my favorite drill. And the thing that stood out today from those guys is that it was a really good battle. Everybody had wins. You know, there was Spencer Brown would beat Greg Rousseau, and then next time around, Greg Rousseau would beat Spencer Brown. Same thing with Deion Dawkins, guys in the middle. Everybody had wins today. The only player on the offensive line that kind of stood out to me in a negative way was Osiris Torrance, who got whooped by TJ Sanders in individual drills and then later on by Landon Jackson in team drills. Not a concern thing, but I thought 64 was the only one who had a bad day. But Bradley Chubb, we talked about Rachel, was a guy who also stood out today.
Yeah, Bradley Chubb, I mean, the one play that stood out was he did put Spencer Brown right on his butt, and Spencer Brown looked pretty defeated after that. I mean, it was just, we talked about in training camp, Bradley Chubb has kind of been pretty quiet. We wanted to feel his presence more, and I think we've definitely gotten that more as, you know, things have started to amp up and they're starting to hit each other more, and practices are kind of more full speed than maybe they were during camp. But definitely today was one of those days where you're like, this is why the Bills picked him up this offseason.
I think that's a good point, Rachel, that ever since they've put the pads on, we've kind of seen him slowly start to get him. He wasn't one of those guys that you put the pads on and immediately day one, he's going, which he's a veteran. Like, we've seen what he can do in this league. I don't think we needed him to do that day one, but it is nice to see him. You know, he made a nice play in the preseason game. Now he's making some good plays in the practices. I think if he can just keep stacking them, that could go a long way.
I had notes on him today that he got by Deion Dawkins easily. There was the Spencer Brown play that Rachel talked about. He also beat Jackson Hawes easily inside. So he had the hat trick of exceptional Bills exterior blockers today, and he whooped all three of them. So you can't get a better day from your edge rusher than what the Bills got from Bradley Chubb today. Another guy that stood out, Rachel, you talked about this too, Davison Igbinosun. Not against, like we said, elite receivers a lot of the time, but he made a couple big plays as well.
Yeah, Igbinosun's he's been getting a lot of reps mostly because of Harrison's kind of working back from injury. Today was his first day back, and then he was obviously out for a while. But it feels like every play that he makes it into a big play somehow. We know he's been going up against, especially today with a lot of receivers out, not, you know, the first team guys, but he's been a guy that is consistently in coverage, consistently, you know, breaking up the pass. I mean, he's impressed me. Like I said, it's hard to tell, I feel like right now, exactly how good he is, because he's been making some plays that the reaction, I think, after is maybe bigger than the play itself. But overall, I feel like he's had a pretty good training camp, and up until now, he's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, I thought he made a few nice plays today. He had a near pick in early on in 11-on-11s, and then towards the end of practice, I don't know if you guys got a better view of this play than I did, but there was a target to Pettis on the left sideline or left area sideline. It was really tight coverage. I thought it might have been a possible PI. It kind of tiptoed that line. Was it obvious PI to you guys?
Watching the replay, he had a good hold of Jersey against the sideline, but it was in a spot where I don't think a referee would see it. And I don't even know if he really, remember, grabbing a jersey is not a penalty. You got to restrict the guy. So if you don't hold him with the jersey, then it's no big deal. The assessment that we made in the media, us amateur referees, is that was not a pass interference. So I thought he made the play.
If it's not a PI, it's a very, very good physical coverage, which is a line that, you know, that's kind of the style that he brings to the table. And if that's a line that he can kind of tiptoe of being really physical but not getting constant penalties, that could be a huge bonus to this
I think
room.
You brought up the point that he celebrates every play like it's
Rachel did. Yeah.
Rachel, yes. That he celebrates all the time, like he's just won the Super Bowl with a pass breakup, even if it's against.
Well, that's what we were saying on the sidelines today. That, I mean, you don't have that in Christian Benford, you don't have that in Max Harrison, so somebody in the room has to have a little bit of juice, and I think IGB has been that guy so far.
Bringing the juice has been the theme. You know, CJ Gardner-Johnson adding an edge, you know, this is what Joe Brady wants. So Igbinosun having that part to his game, I'm certainly is not going to be frowned upon. And he's been fine in camp. You know, there's a reason why Max Harrison is still the starter, even though we don't talk about Harrison making big plays, and the guy hasn't even been on the field the last 2 weeks. I do think Igbinosa in the last week or so has gotten a little more consistent and a little better. I think the floor is raising just a bit on 21. Not to where we're talking about him in a starter battle, but you certainly feel better about who your third corner is right now. Jim Leonard addressed the media today, and one of the guys he talked about was TJ Sanders. And I did mention before that Sanders whooped Osiris Torrance in one-on-ones. I thought the play that Sanders made today was the best moment of his Bills career, which, look, it's a short career. He was hurt a little bit last year. It wasn't great. We're not saying much. This was an amazing play. Torrance was on his back. The whole D-line was cheering, and I probably think they were laughing a little bit. It was that good a play. And Caleb, Leonard talked about Sanders a little more today, right?
Yeah, Sanders is one of those guys that I think the Bills are kind of hoping for a year two jump out of. He was listed on the original depth chart to go into the preseason game against Carolina as one of the starting defensive linemen with Deion Walker and Ed Oliver, but he didn't get a single snap in the first half. He didn't play at all until the second, and even then when he did, he didn't really do much. So Leonard was asked about it today and kind of brushed it off.
We didn't play many snaps was really the thing. And again, don't look too much into who is with what group, because in our mind, it's still that progression of training camp, right? Where you're working different combinations and trying to find the right fit and the right role, and it was kind of Landon's turn to go first in the game, and we got 3 3-and-outs with that first group. So we just wanted to see different combinations of players on the field, and it'll change game 2, game 3 as we continue to go through the preseason.
Now, Jim Leonard can tell us to not read into who's playing when and with who. But in the preseason, that's like the only thing that you want to read into, who is playing and when. Now, it is still preseason. It doesn't necessarily mean everything. Landon Jackson, who I think is certainly in competition or in consideration to be a big part of the rotation on that the defensive line, also played pretty deep in the second half, and I'm not really concerned about his standing. Jim Leonard is right in that the defense was so good they didn't play many snaps, but there was enough snaps to get TJ Sanders onto the field in the first half. So give me your take, Rachel. You can go first. Just defensive line in general, Sanders in particular, anything you want to read from where he's been or what's happened with this group through one preseason game so far.
I mean, it's definitely interesting that he didn't get any snaps. I really don't know if I know where I feel like he stands in the sense of, okay, maybe you don't want to see him because, I mean, if it was anyone, maybe if it was someone not TJ Sanders, I feel like this is the type of player you want to see in the preseason. So it's interesting to me that they didn't play him for those snaps. So I don't think it's leaning in the direction of, well, we know where he's at, he's good enough, and we're fine with that. But it's also, you think you want to just see where he's at. I mean, this is a guy, like you said, year 2, he's expected to have a jump. And especially if he's listed as a starter, or at least on the depth chart as being up there, it's just very interesting to me to see where he's at, because I think I haven't heard not a lot about him, but just it's kind of a mystery, I guess, from the D-line. I think Sanders is the biggest mystery piece of what's going on there.
Interesting thought, in terms of him being the number one mystery piece. And I do like the idea of, why didn't you play him? Because he's listed as a starter. You'd probably want to see that.
Yeah. It's like I said, mysteries really that sums it up for me.
I'll listen to Leonard for a few days. If he tells me not to read into it, I won't read into it for right now. But if this weekend goes similar to how that first preseason game goes, I'm gonna start reading into it pretty heavily. Like I said, Sanders is one of those guys that you would think the Bills really need to get some production, or at least more production than they got out of last year. Now, if a guy like Landon Jackson is producing and he's looking okay, and if a guy like Michael Hoyt is coming back and he's playing okay, if a guy like
Zane Durant,
like any of those guys, Dwayne Carter, like if one of those guys can step up, then maybe it's not a bigger, or even if just a guy like Deion Walker becomes the star that he kind of looks like he might be, then maybe it's not as big of a deal. But he's still a second round pick from last year that
TJ Sanders is. Yep.
Yeah, that TJ Sanders that you want to produce. So I agree with Rachel that it is a little strange that you're not at least trying to get him some snaps in that first half. But I won't read it into it until it happens twice.
I think as you guys were talking, I was kind of going through the Rolodex of defensive linemen to see who the biggest mystery was. And I think you're right. I think it probably is Sanders, because he's got the high draft pedigree and the lack of success so far in year 1, with a lot of good excuses, reasonable excuses to go with it. I think that as a whole, this has been a good camp for this group. Deion Walker, the preseason game by itself is providing star glimpses. And then Sanders and Jackson and maybe a little less Durant, Fedarian Mathis, who's obviously suspended, those, other than Durant, those are the three guys I think have lifted the floor on where you think they can be. Not a lot, but a little. And I feel okay about those guys as rotational pieces. So don't start expecting the Bills to be number one in defense or anything like that. But I do think this group is better than where I thought they were 3-4 weeks ago.
It's also better that they're all lifting that floor.
Yes.
You know, like if it was just Zane
One guy.
Durant, then I'd be like, all right, whatever. But the fact that they're all, even if they haven't like busted through that ceiling yet, the fact that they're all slowly progressing towards that point makes me confident that one of them will at some point.
All right. It has been a camp practice, technically, even though it was in the stadium. So that means it's time to hand out turkey burgers for day number 11. I am keeping track. This is really day 11 for anybody who cares, and it might just be me. But Rachel, you go first. First turkey burger for today.
My first turkey burger is Dante Pettis for the deep touchdown that I think, was it Josh Allen threw that? I'm pretty well.
Yes.
Yeah, because lack of receiving out there. Yes, he was out there. He just is one of those guys. I feel like last year training camp, you have like one guy. I think it was Steven Gosnell. I think Dante Pettis is the new Steven Gosnell of just like having flashy plays like he did last year. So I'm gonna give it to Pettis.
I'm going to go with the guy that we talked about, Davidson Igbinosun. Like I said, a near pick and 11 on 11. I was kind of on the fence about giving him a turkey burger until you guys won me over with the fact that it definitely, or we think, us referees, think that it wasn't PI. If that last play was not pass interference, I thought it was really, really good coverage, and he made a really good play on the ball. So I'm going to go with IGB.
A guy we have not mentioned today, Tyler Bass, who had two different field goal periods. One I actually watched from behind the goalpost. The second one I didn't have a great view of. It seemed like he made all of them. There was one in the second period I wasn't quite on top of to know, but that one looked good too. The first period I know had a 50-yarder and a 53-yarder. So for a guy who's certainly under all the scrutiny in the world, coming off a not so great preseason performance where he did miss a kick, to make them all today in the stadium where he missed that kick the other day, I thought was a nice bounce back. So certainly turkey burger for Mr. Bass. Rachel?
Bradley Chubb is my next one because I feel like I don't see Spencer Brown get completely laid out on the ground very often. And for someone to be able to do that, I think it deserves turkey burger. So Bradley Chubb for me.
I'm going to go with Steven Gosnell, another receiver that took advantage of some guys being out. He made a really good grab on the right-hand sideline on Kenai Walker. 50-50 type ball and just went up and grabbed it. We think that he might have bobbled it a little bit on the way down, but based off the reaction from the sideline, it looks like he made a really good grab.
Is he the new Dante Pettis? If Steven Gosnell if Pettis is the new Gosnell?
Then Gosnell would be the new Pettis.
Yes.
Yeah.
So whoever makes the last play is
whoever makes the last play is the guy.
Is the guy.
We talked about Gosnell a lot during training camp last year.
We did.
And I just feel like Pettis is like risen up to be the
And he hasn't really popped up much this year, but the play that he made today is the type of play that we talked about him a lot for last year.
So we're going to talk about Dante Pettis for like 30 seconds, which is, I think, exactly what he deserves. And that's not a knock. He's been okay. I mean, for like the seventh receiver who's been in the league for a while, for sure, that everybody has probably had on their fantasy team for a hot second, he's been noticeable as like the best of the other group. Yeah. And if he ends up on the practice squad, I would feel okay about that, not only for him and the choice, but for the Bills receiving corps going forward. 30 seconds over. Turkey burger number 2 for me is TJ Sanders. We talked about, look, the spin move was fantastic. I don't know where this came from with Sanders, to be honest. He was driving the outside shoulder, and all of a sudden it was like he hit the F button and spun around, and Osiris Torrance was on his back like he was looking up to the sky, looking for help, and that was the only way he was going to win that rep. And as I said, there was giggles on the defensive side. That's how good it was. And it was not only the best move of TJ Sanders' career, I thought it was the best move of O-line, D-line one-on-ones I've seen all year long. So
I'm kind of having like FOMO that I didn't see this.
Oh,
that's high praise.
Yeah,
that's
all you all who are watching the receivers and the skill guys.
What receivers? There were no receivers today.
If you're watching Dante Pettis and new Dante Pettis and old Dante Pettis, y'all missed the play of the day, which was TJ Sanders whooping Osiris Torrance. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Bills Camp Day Recap. Want to remind you, as always, you can check us out on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Please click that subscribe button. It's better for you because then you get the episodes automatically delivered to wherever you have your episodes delivered to. Right, Caleb?
Great job. That was a great
I'm figuring it out, everybody. Woo! Got a long season left to go. For Caleb and Rachel, I'm Thad. We're back again on Thursday to recap the joint practice from Cleveland. We will talk to you again in a couple days.